The Emotional Craft of Fiction is a book written by Donald Mass, teaching the reader the skills they need to create emotional roller coasters in their stories, as well as instruction on how to properly write lovable, relatable, and praiseworthy characters. Over the course of the past couple days, I have read the book and compiled my thoughts and notes on the text for today's video, where we will talk about the complexity and genius of the characters found within the greatest piece of fiction ever written, One Piece. The various clips shown on screen are examples found within the story. Some money scenes, which I talk about in a previous video on this channel, that sell the characters' believability and charm. You remember these characters, and when you do remember them, you remember these scenes. And when you remember these scenes, it is because of the emotional journey you went through when you watched them or read them. Donald Mass introduces his novel with the sentiment that the emotions the characters are feeling are not exactly what matters. The reason these moments are so impactful to us is because of the emotions, the scenes, and character moments well up within us. If you are like me, you wonder why One Piece is so good at conveying such strong emotion through you. And if you really are like me, you're wondering how it can create such experiences for yourself that you want to create in your own stories. In this video, we will dive right into the concepts taught in Donald Mass's The Emotional Craft of Fiction, as well as Oda's peak fiction One Piece, to understand how and why we've all become so attached to this story and these characters, as well as answering the question, how does Oda make you cry for that boat? And if this type of content interests you, I have 2 videos right now on my channel discussing topics within the same realm, so go check them out as well as my other videos if you're interested, and subscribe because there's a lot more coming. So why does the funeral of the Going Merry hit? Why does it get you so emotional, and why does it make you cry? Why do you feel so attached? Well, to start off our analysis of this scene, we'll have to jump quickly to a different novel that achieves a similar result with its audience. Stephen King's Dr. Sleep, a sequel to The Shining, follows Dan Torrance as he struggles with his traumatic childhood and his supernatural gift. In the climax of the novel, Dan returns to the abandoned Overlook Hotel and sacrifices himself to destroy the evil that remains there. The moment is tragic, but what makes it powerful isn't the description of his death. It's the contrast that King gives us. Instead of dwelling on the horror of burning alive, King shows us Dan's final flashes of memory, his childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. These aren't grim, they're hopeful, joyful, and triumphant. The reader doesn't just feel sorrow at his loss, but also a sense of closure and victory for the character. And this is exactly the kind of framing we see the last moments of the Going Merry. So let's look at the last moments of the Going Merry. What kind of emotions does Oda dwell on? What does he show? What kind of moments does he leave with the viewer and let them remember? What does Oda want us to feel? Well, I think it's similar to what King does in his own novel. You cry for the boat. Why? Well, think of what is shown to you right before the Merry leaves us. Happy, joyful, funny, triumphant memories, as well as good, emotional moments from each member of the Straw Hats expressing the gratitude for the ship. It's not necessarily sad, it's a bittersweet moment. Oda doesn't only just give us one scene. 2 other significant moments come immediately to mind when I think about the subversion of emotions. The great examples would be the infamous Red Rock and the joyful yet heartbreaking backstory of Kuma. Both implement similar tactics to get the reader emotional, and it works. The moment of Mary's death and the ones leading up to it are littered with tiny seeds of emotion that Oda plants in us before he delivers the final blow. So let's break it down and apply the strategies we learned. First of all that emotional baggage Oda scatters in the moments leading up to his death, that makes it more significant and draws a better reaction from us. And this technique is used frequently throughout the One Piece story, and when we see patterns like this, we can take note of them and imply the genius of great authors in our own work. So for this video, let's call Oda's technique as the Bittersweet Framing, and it can be broken down into 3 parts: the sweet, the bitter, and then the memory framing. Let's look at another example of Bittersweet Framing in another One Piece arc. Let us use the infamous death that no one saw coming from Marineford, and see how it lines up with the coined Bittersweet Framing. Hey, if you're still watching, you should totally subscribe. First of all, let's start with the sweet. The obvious moment would be the successful rescue of Ace that is prior to his eventual death. But let's skip back even farther than that. Within the same arc, Oda lays a little more sweet into the mix in the character of Whitebeard. Whitebeard is an admirable guy. His goals and dreams of wanting a family are directly tied to Ace and his significance to him and Luffy. Oda uses Whitebeard to tie the three of them together, sweetly, to make the eventual death just that more impactful. Whitebeard longs for family, children that matter to him, and giving belonging to others who need it. Luffy has a family tie to Ace. Their brotherhood brings them closer than Luffy's own blood relatives, referring to his father and grandpa. And finally, Ace himself, searching for a place to belong. As soon as Oda reveals that Ace is the son of Roger, he plants a seed within the reader's mind. Through Luffy's struggles to reach him, and Whitebeard's fatherly care, the stakes become high. You don't care about Ace's well-being because Luffy does. You don't care about it because Oda tells you to. But because the sweet moments Oda litters throughout the arc, a sense of family, belonging, emotion, desires that all of us have too, you become attached to Ace yourself. Even the death of Oars Jr. adds to the sweetness of this family message. Now that Oda has you invested, now that he has you on the edge of your seat as to watch the family struggle and fight for what they believe in and who they love, they throw Garp in the mix. His feelings differ drastically from the others. Feelings of guilt, shame, justice, sadness, anger, disgust, empathy, and joy at Ace's false rescue bellow throughout his mind. The sweet is beautifully portrayed in the events leading up to the bitter moment soon to come. And this is exactly where the bitter comes in, which also starts before what immediately comes to your mind, the donut. But the bitterness actually begins with the donut maker himself, Akainu. Akainu is a phenomenal antagonist. His literal and highly exaggerated sense of justice not only makes him unpredictable, but an unstoppable obstacle for our heroes to overcome. Right from his introduction, he is an immediate force against our trio of family fighting heroes. He stands before Luffy, eventually scars him, fights Whitebeard, and finally takes the life of Ace. He is bitter, and the death of Ace solidifies this bitterness, as well as adding some sweetness to the mix, with Ace's reaction to his demise, a smile, and a heart-wrenching line, "Thank you for loving me." Then Oda gives us his memory framing to further the impact of the death Then Oda gives us his memory framing to further the impact of the death Oh my goodness. Then Oda gives us his memory framing to further the impact of the death that it has on the readers emotionally. The Ace, Luffy, and Sabo flashback is one of the stronger ones in the series because of the bittersweet framing it complements. We won't go too much into detail on the flashback in this video, but it's worth studying, so if you guys want a video on that, let me know. The bittersweet framing within the Marineford arc actually beautifully sets up one of, if not the most emotional scene in the entire series. I still have my friends. Jinbei's reminder to Luffy as to what he still has is impactful due to the way that it's set up. The sweet enveloped us in themes of family and belonging. The bitter set up the countless obstacles that can get in the way of achieving these noble desires. And finally, the memory framing sets into perspective the impact Ace and his death had on Luffy, and how it helps him overcome his weakness and grow as a strong captain for his newfound family. Now, before we wrap up, let's look at one more equally powerful example of bittersweet framing within One Piece. Robin's famous "I Want to Live" moment in Enies lobby. The camaraderie of the Straw Hat Pirates, Robin's newfound sense of belonging, starting all the way back in Alabasta when Luffy saves Robin from peril. Robin's suicidal thinking, her self-hatred becomes a huge obstacle for her to overcome. The Ohara flashback, tying bitter and sweet together through the perseverance of a little girl and the devastating situation she finds herself in. And all of this makes Robin's declaration to Luffy of that she wants to live hit like a truck. The audience doesn't just feel for Robin, but for the Straw Hats as well, as their bond finally breaks through her despair. In the end, bittersweet framing works because it doesn't just make you cry, it makes us care. By blending joy with sorrow, it reminds us that even in loss, there is something worth cherishing, and that's what keeps these moments alive in our hearts long after the story ends. I encourage anyone on their own journey to storytelling greatness to use this technique in their own creative endeavors. It works. That's why it's used. And let me know what you guys think the most emotionally strong moment in One Piece is. I'm curious to see what you guys think. And I highly recommend going to read Donald Mass's book on emotional storytelling. It's a very good read. People don't get invested in emotions that are constantly seen. They don't get invested in two-sided emotions like anger, sadness, and happiness. They get invested in the bittersweet. Write that in your story. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching. This video was super fun to make. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. There'll be more coming soon. Every view is appreciated, and we absolutely love seeing you checking out the channel. This has been Jackson with Conversation Hockey, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
We have the new Dr. Squatch 1D soap. Let's try it out. Got the soap? Let's go.
Let us know if you see any difference.